Welcome to Tech Talks Tech, an exclusive interview series with your host, the TechSnob, only on Metawaveradio.com. For today's interview, we welcome Web3 visionary and show host, CityGirl. Tech, over to you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tech Talks Tech on Metawave Radio. Today, we have an incredibly special guest joining us. She's a visionary who has seamlessly blended her expertise in event planning, IT, and her passion for nonprofit work, all within the cutting-edge realm of the metaverse. With a rich background in organizing real-world events and deep understanding of technology, she has now transcended into the virtual world, hosting a metaverse talk show that features some of the brightest and biggest minds in developing Web3 space. Welcome to the show, CityGirl.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the show. I've been to your show a few times, and I know you have quite a longevity in what you've been doing, in several metaverses right now, and we're familiar with your work and some other developers that you've also worked with. And let's start with tell our audience a little bit about yourself and maybe some of your background outside of the metaverse.
Sure. So my original background was in graphic design, and I loved what I was doing, but the world was shifting, not to age myself, but it was shifting into the more computer technology. So I actually got my degree in computer science and missed working with the graphics. So I combined the two and got involved with desktop publishing. And started doing web design and, creating marketing flyers, and really dove in deep with marketing.
Okay.
And did that for about 20 years for a lot of different corporate style entities. That was my main focus for quite a while. All the time, still, playing video games and still enjoying tech and, working with computers and stuff, and, balancing both of them.
Okay.
And I think then, due to some personal things that happened where I adopted a dog and fell in love, and then took his brother in, and they were the whole center of my world, and then lost both of them to canine cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. It was really emotional for me, but I didn't want it to just be, they meant so much to me. I didn't want their loss to be in vain. So I decided to start a nonprofit for canine cancer research and treatment.
Okay.
And so that has been a huge passion of mine for the last 8 years. And I have actually, during the COVID pandemic, I kind of got into VR and the metaverse. And so I kind of brought all my skills with me and took them into the metaverse. And I've even brought my nonprofit in for a bit as well. So it's kind of like been almost a full circle of, digital starting out and then coming full circle to now. That's a huge part of my life. Okay.
So you have all of these skills under your belt in the real world. And you've been doing this for quite some time. You're an animal lover. I don't have a pet myself, but I understand, my daughter has a dog, and when I go over there, that dog, it's just like, it's actually a pit bull. It's very strong, but it's like the most lovable thing ever. And maybe one day I'll get a pet myself. So I understand the love of a dog, and, some of my business partners, they're always saying to get one as well. But so you're doing all these different things in the real world, and then you said the pandemic hit.
Yes.
What had happened to you at the time when the pandemic hit so that you would start transitioning into a virtual environment? Because this is not the first time that I've heard these stories as well. We are actually a product of the same thing, where at the time when the pandemic hit, we were doing real world things, but we had to pivot. And, many of us that are currently working in the metaverse, that was a time of transition. Could you tell me how exactly that happened?
Oh, absolutely. So I live alone, and it's just me and my dog, who right now currently is actually a pit bull. Love him very much, and he is super sweet too. But I was living alone and working from home and not socializing with anyone. And as much as that, I'm a extroverted introvert. I love my me time. I can be alone, but it was a lot of alone time. So I said, you know what? I need to play a game. And I've always had a gaming system, but I was in between at the time. So I was going to buy like a new Xbox or a new
Okay.
PlayStation.
Are you
And
an Xbox person or a PlayStation person, by the way?
Xbox and Nintendo.
Okay. Yep, me too. Okay. Sorry to
Uh,
interrupt.
yeah, I love that. But when I went online to buy it, I was like, all right, I want to find something I'm really going to enjoy. And I started seeing the ads for the Oculus at the time. And I was like, oh my God, virtual reality. I've always been interested, been curious about it. The only virtual reality I've ever done has been like in an arcade where you go in the room and put the glasses on. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to do this instead. And if I hate it, okay, so be it. I can return it, but I'm going to try it. And so I ordered it. And I very smartly ordered it off of Amazon. So it was there in 2 days.
Okay. Now, was this the Oculus 2 or the one at the time?
This was the two at the time.
Okay. It had just come out then around that time.
Yes.
Okay.
And it showed up, and I said, oh, please let this be good. And I put it on, and within the first 5 minutes, I was like, this is life-changing. This is amazing. I'm completely in love. And I just started visiting worlds and, checking out games. One of the very first places I came to was AltSpace.
Okay.
And that, I will say that AltSpace, although it does not exist today, changed my life forever.
I would have to agree, because I know that we're both actually alt space alumni, and in that space, it was a very good space where you could hone some skills and learn a lot about the metaverse pretty unrestricted.
Mhm.
Now, when you first came into the space, did you have any inkling prior to what was going on? What made you choose alt space? I know when people were first getting into the metaverse, they were like in venues and stuff like that.
Mhm.
What was your first impression when you came into the metaverse coming from the real world?
So the first game I did when I bought my headset and put it on after I went through the tutorials, I went into the store because the little virtual store, and there were things to download, and I found this really cool thing called Gloomy Eyes. And nobody probably knows what this is, but it was an app that was like, I don't know, $3.
Hmm.
And so I bought it, and you stood in the middle of your room, and it was a virtual play in a black space. So
Hmm.
you felt like you were standing inside the play, and it was happening around you with these little characters. And I'm not going to lie, it was a little freaky because I was like, wow, I'm inside of this. And it was exciting and exhilarating. And when I went back to the store to get something else, I couldn't find anything like that. And I saw this thing called AltSpace, and it was free.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'm just going to download this because it said, come here to meet people, to gather, to do all these things. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll meet some people to have fun and play games with, not knowing that it was more of a social app. So
Right.
that's how I got into it. And once I was in there, one of the first places I went to was called the Brooklyn Rooftop, and it was
Okay.
a party that used to happen every night.
It was every Thursday that they had the big one. I think it was.
Yes,
I
yes.
used, yep, I remember I used to go there as well. That was one of my first introductions. That, and there was another place called the Bad Girls Club back then. I can't remember her name. She used to have, I think it was somebody named Chicago Girl or something. Used to have
Mm.
a big event. But I know that when you were in alt space, you were also part of some of the biggest events that were going on in there. How did your just coming into the metaverse and transitioning to creating these types of events, and what was the roadmap for that?
Mm. So I came in and met a bunch of people, and I got asked to help with a couple different things. And I was like, sure, I love learning new things, especially tech related. So I got excited that, they wanted me to be part. And I was always being a sponge and taking in everything they were teaching me. And I did a couple little fun things, and then I actually I met a friend in there who introduced me to the Flock.
Okay.
And the Flock was the biggest events group that was happening in alt space. and they said, we'd like you to come join us and help us host events. And I was like, oh man, like in the real world, I was at that time, I was doing my nonprofit.
Okay.
And so I had experience hosting events in the real world, so I felt comfortable with that. I also do quite a bit of work with rescue,
Okay.
dog rescue. So I host like adoption events and stuff in the real world. So I was like, I have a little experience here. I really would think in here I could grow that. So we did a lot of holiday party events, concerts. The flock was really well known. And so there was a huge attendance, and because of that I got the exposure of meeting a ton of people, but also being part of some of the biggest events that happened in alt space.
So, so what were some of the biggest events that you can remember early that you were part of throwing or responsible for throwing, and how did your real world life skills transitioned into the metaverse to make that happen?
Mm. So we did the winter snowball. That was really cool. That was a world that was designed by Optic, and who was one of the big world builders in AltSpace. And there was a ton of people coming in and out all throughout the event, which lasted several hours. During that event, one of the things that I would do as a host is you had amplify zones, and you had different ways to amplify your voice over the world so everyone could hear you. And you would, announce like, oh, welcome, say it was welcome Metatech, welcome Joe, welcome to all the people that came in. I would
Right.
also help with the planning of the events. Like, okay, they would give me certain responsibilities that I had to, make sure we had advertising out on social media, which is a big part of my daily life in the real world.
Okay.
So I was helping them out with that. We also put together quite a few birthday events for certain individuals. People who come to us and say, my birthday's coming up and I would love to host a big event in here. Can you guys throw it for me? And so we would get all the information from them. What are your favorite colors, your favorite type of music? Tell us things that you want, because in alt space, designing was a lot easier. You
Okay.
had all these kits that you could bring assets in on a whim and drop them into a world on the fly. So even though the worlds already existed in there, and for those who are listening who might not understand what I mean, it's a virtual environment that you're in, where it might be a house, a nightclub, a beach, any sort of virtual environment. Any environment you have in the real world could be recreated in the metaverse.
So, so
That
did
was
any of your IT background actually help in this transition? Like, did you bring some of that knowledge in, or was there anything that you had learned prior, maybe from technology, that might have given you an edge in, developing some of these events that were going on at the time?
Yes, I would say that one of the big things I did for them was, and pretty much in general with events in AltSpace, was bring assets in, which is just like an individual part of an environment. And my knowledge of, well, number one, I had a lot of internet research knowledge. I also had a lot of familiarity moving around on the computers and a huge background in Photoshop. So I would go on to different websites like CG Trader and Sketchfab, and those have digital assets that you can bring in that are already created,
Okay.
bring them into a program called Unity that everybody uses to bring worlds into the metaverse for most of the platforms, not all, but a lot of them use Unity. And in those programs, Photoshop and Unity, I could go in and manipulate the asset, change the color, change the texture, make it shiny, remove pieces of it, or add different little things onto it. And although I learned those skills from people here in the metaverse, my background and knowledge of how to use Photoshop and software in general definitely made it easier for me to pick up the skills for manipulation.
Okay. So the transition was pretty easy, or pretty painless, moving into the metaverse.
You are listening to Tech Talks Tech with your host, the TechSnob, on MetawaveRadio.com. Be sure to check out our retro weekends every Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m., and party tracks, 8 p.m. to midnight. Listen in from any web browser via your loudest Bluetooth speakers. The All Era Party is always on at MetawaveRadio.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
Once you were planning these events, you also started hosting them. When did you transition into creating your own platform in there?
I did spend quite a bit of time after the flock. I was co-hosting game shows. So I got a little bit of knowledge on how to actually work with guests, because one-on-one versus just hosting a party, because in a party, just like in the real world, people get together and they entertain themselves. When
Right.
you're actually the host of a smaller event like a talk show or a game show or a podcast, it's you and them, and you need to be on at all times. I will say that doing these kinds of things greatly enhanced my public speaking skills in the real world.
Okay.
It made me far more comfortable getting up on stage and talking with people, and realizing that if somebody came to your event or to your show, they actually want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
So you need to not only be ready to say it, but feel comfortable, be confident, because they're there to hear you. So just speak from the heart and go with it. And so I decided I wanted to learn more about Web3 and AI and all of the new technology that's being implemented into the metaverse. So I started hosting a show called Yummy NFTs. And I knew nothing at all about NFTs at the time. The gentleman who runs Blockchain Universe had recruited me to be his host. And I came on and I started meeting all these really interesting guests who are talking about NFTs they're creating, which were digital assets that were, at the time, they were either videos, pictures, or music. Those
Okay.
were the three most common. And not knowing anything they were talking about, I was like, I need to go home and do my research.
Right.
So I started learning more, and then I would question these people when they came on, like, how did you do this? What platforms are you using? And the guests after the show would come up to me and they'd say things like, I love the show. It was great. Very entertaining. I wish I knew what you were talking about. I don't understand these words. It's all foreign. So I started to think about that a little bit, and I said, you know what? I'm learning all this stuff, and you guys are learning. We should be learning together instead of me learning it on my own and then spouting it all out there like I'm an expert. I'm learning. You guys can learn with me. Let's bring the experts on and have them teach us. So I shifted gears, and I left Yummy NFTs and started Crypto City, which was supposed to be a talk show podcast where I brought people on who were already fully immersed in this stuff and learning it, and come on to talk, and I would question them, explain what you do, explain how you do it, explain how you got into it, and how other people who are interested can get involved.
Okay.
And that's how it started. And it has definitely evolved. We have now, we're about to start season 5 of Crypto City. We've done 66 episodes. They're all up on YouTube. And it has evolved from being about crypto and NFTs and Web3, and to now including AI and all things VR and metaverse, software platforms, all of it all together. And the guest speakers have grown in size because we've, grown to a bigger topic field.
Okay. Okay. So now that you have all of these things under your belt, you have event planning, then you're moving into your own platform. What would you say were the key differences, or maybe even more challenging or less challenging in comparison to planning some of these things in the real world, as it was for you starting these and planning these in a metaverse environment?
So some of the challenges, we'll start with that, is audio issues would be the number one challenge I've found, because technology is technology. And when it works, it's fabulous. And when it doesn't, it's very detrimental to success. So
Correct.
Audio issues are always number one, especially with the podcast.
Right.
And I would say sometimes in the metaverse, things can glitch, and different things can make that happen. If the world has too many polygons in it, if it's too heavy, if somebody comes in with an avatar that is huge and, they don't have the courtesy to change down into a more suitable one, it can just cause everybody who's in the room to start, getting glitchy, and it actually causes motion sickness for a lot of people.
Okay.
So though there are those kinds of challenges, the other challenges would be, driving people to your event. So you need to be your own, one-man marketing person, because you need to post on social media. You need to run around word of mouth and tell everyone you're doing these events. You need to recruit good volunteers and make a great team to work with you, because you can't do it on your own. You need other people to be part of your team. It's essential.
Correct.
And the community plays the biggest part of your success. So it's important to stay very open-minded with the community and on good terms with them. You don't have the luxury of, staying by yourself, or you'll never be successful. You need to embrace everyone. And if there are people that, are not necessarily the people you want in your inner circle, you still need to be respectful to them, because you never know who is friends with who, or who knows who that could help you grow further in your.
It's like basically like any network, in my opinion. Like in the real world, it might even be more so within this microcosm of people, where that might be even more essential, being that there's less people who are in here and there are more people who know each other, even on the business end, to be cordial to each other. Do you find that happens a lot? Do you find that there's a lot of cross business where might be those who aren't willing to do business just by affiliations?
I do. I see it quite a bit. And I will say that there are gray areas. There's no black and white. There are maybe some people who you might not want to do business with yourself, but they're doing business with somebody you do support, so you'll put aside your pride and you'll go.
Right.
There's other times where you see somebody is not their way of doing business does not vibe with the way you do. So you just choose not to actually interact with them. But that doesn't mean, some people will try to be a little bit competitive and cutthroat. That's not my style. I truly believe here in the metaverse, there is more than enough opportunity for everyone. So I do my thing, and I'm respectful of others, and I try to be supportive whenever I can. But to get back to your original question, what do I see as the benefits of doing business in here?
Right.
Oh, there's so many, starting with the fact that to throw an event, the cost effectiveness is amazing. You can build a world and have everything you need in it to be, streaming videos and talking to people and gather, you don't have the overhead of renting a hall. You don't have the overhead of feeding and giving drinks to the people in the audience. You don't have to book a place 3 months in advance and worry they're going to be sold out. You can do all of this stuff so easily, and you can throw an event tomorrow. I mean, it's kind of short notice, but you physically can, plan something tonight and throw it tomorrow and have people attend. So it's very open-ended and flexible like that. Some of the other benefits are, for people who are truly introverted and not comfortable being in front of people in a crowd, there's a level of security behind the avatar.
Okay.
Now, I think behind the avatar, people need to know that behind that avatar, there's a person. So, you still have somebody with emotions and feelings, so be kind always. But you do have a level of security with that avatar on, because you can be anyone you want to be. And, you can sit there and maybe be shy in the real world, but you can project yourself as somebody who's more confident and talk knowledgeably about something that you are passionate about. And people will listen to you because you want to talk, they'll listen.
So tell me about what it was like to set up your first event where it was just you. Now you have other members of your team, correct?
I do. For Crypto City, I have other members on the team. I have Blue Moon, who has become my best
Okay.
friend. And she is very smart. She came from the flock and she's extremely good with logistics. So she will sit there and she'll look at an event and be like, okay, you can't do this because of XYZ. It won't work, but you can do this instead. And she will she's really good at troubleshooting, but she's also really good at looking at a space and making it work, almost like an interior designer. And
Okay.
that's kind of part of her love. So I have her. I have Loudfire is because I do a podcast and because we are in VR, you do need security. You need the equivalent of what would be like a bouncer at a nightclub.
Okay.
He will
So you
sit
can kick
there.
somebody out there acting crazy, basically.
Yes, so you get people, you get kids who come in and they're just
Right.
disruptive, and she has a special admin tool that she can kick them out of the world so that they don't ruin the recording.
Right.
I have Kip, who is the world builder,
Mm-hmm.
and he also built my custom avatar for the
Shout
show.
out to Kip
Yeah.
York. He was on the show maybe like a month ago or so.
He's amazing and he's very flexible and easy to work with. And if I say to him, hey, I got some ideas, I'd like to change it up, he's like, I got you, and he'll take care of it. And then I have DJ Marcus, who I've done a bunch of different business things with,
Mm-hmm.
but he has been kind of behind the scenes the best marketing for me because he pushes me all the time and he always shares our stuff and he's always telling people, go to Crypto City, and then he gives us shout outs all the time. And on the radio station that I'm part of with him, he will replay my episodes every day at 11 a.m. So
Okay.
he's been so great. And now he has officially joined the team this season, going into season 5 as part of our camera crew.
Okay. So you're saying that it's important for a team to have a specialty in whatever they're very proficient to, and that's why you're saying that you can't do it yourself. For anybody who's coming into the metaverse, get yourself a good team together and find somebody that specializes possibly in some things that you need.
Absolutely. And there's so many people in here with skills, and there's every day they're growing their skills because they're so not just immersed in the metaverse, but immersed in the technology now because they're excited about it. Everything we see in here is so exhilarating. And each day, the world builders and the scripters and the people who are putting the technology into the metaverse for us are developing bigger and better things and blowing our minds. So as people are getting excited, they're going and taking classes, they're getting certificate degrees, they're spending their free time, similar to what you've done, Tech, learning all these different things so that they can be better themselves and help the community.
So yeah, that's a good thing that you say the community. When you say the community, it would be like the VR community. It basically, so let's back up a little bit. Now, you're an event planner, and basically event planning involves people's, socialization. For those who don't know and who will listen to the podcast, explain to the listeners what's the social atmosphere in VR. We've been in several metaverses. How does that compare to the real world, and especially when you have to plan an event?
Well, I think when you're going to plan your event, if you have a large friend group in here, they are typically supportive and will come to your events. So you actually start out with a little base, kind of like if you were planning something in the real world and you tell your friends and family you're going to do it, some of those people will show up. So you have some attendees that come because they support you, which is wonderful. I find the community in VR is extremely supportive, as it is a general nature. That's just how it is. But you have people in here who see the opportunity and seize it. So when it comes to events, they might say, you know what? I have a personal affliction that I deal with. Other people might have this too. So I'm going to throw an event for that. And people will come out of the woodwork, and you'll meet people who have similar situations. When you asked me earlier what it was like to throw my first event that was just me, I actually threw an event for my nonprofit in the metaverse.
I remember that.
It was amazing, the turnout. Now, when I say it was just me, I still had a team behind the scenes.
Right.
Blue and Stovert and a few other people were still there. I think Sparrow joined us as well. They were all there with me and helped me behind the scenes, but that was the first time it was just me on stage. And I got up there to talk about my mission with my nonprofit. And I broke down a little and got teary-eyed because it's a very emotional, passionate thing that I'm dealing with. And the audience, some of them got emotional too and came up to me afterwards and were saying, you had us in tears. And that meant so much to me that these people showed up to support and actually like felt what I was feeling and came up to share that with me. And that's the kind of support you find in the metaverse. You also find people that are like-minded and can kind of group with them. People who are involved in tech tend to get together and have, little powwows where they chat with each other like, hey,
That
I'm
is true.
this. Yeah.
I say that all the time. I said, if I need some experts, I don't have to go that far. I'll just put my headset on and I'm going to find them in a day or two. Because there's so many intelligent people that, occupy this space. And you're right. People just openly have conversations about whatever's going on currently. It's been pretty much a very close-knit social environment, especially in alt space. It was more like family. And we had this discussion, you and I, recently about the tight-knit community. Are there people that you're particularly tight with, almost like family in this space at this point?
Absolutely. I've actually met quite a few people in real life from the metaverse,
Okay.
especially alt space. And, I would say I probably have about 5 people that I consider family,
Okay.
and that I would do anything for. And that is a great feeling because if we talk to where it came from, back during
Mhm.
the pandemic, do you know how nice it was at the end of the day, every day, to have someone to talk about how you were
Mhm.
feeling? Some people did get sick and, they had people to share that with, and to be able to say, hey, you know what, today I just want to sit here, let's just chat. And then other days it was like, hey, let's go play a game. And so you have that camaraderie that you would normally have with your real life friends. Now, the pandemic has, for the most part, slowed down and moved away, and people are back to a normal semblance of life. And these people that I have met in the metaverse are still part of my, maybe not every single day, but multiple times a week, I am spending time with them, quality time with them.
Right. And that I noticed that happened, like, even after, we had this discussion that after alt space went down, the groups who had spent a lot of time together, they still remain, even though they are in other metaverses at this
Mhm.
time.
Absolutely. There's so many people in here that, if you walk in a room, like kind of like yourself, if you walk in a room, it's like, that Joe is going to be right near you soon. Like
That's
they're
true. I
your
walked in a room the other day and Joe wasn't there. Key Key came up to me and he said, where's the other half? So it's like,
Exactly. But it's kind of nice that you do have that familial feeling when you're with these people. But there's also other people in here that have become good business relationships, even if you're not actually doing business. What I mean is that they're resources.
right.
You can go to them and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, what do you recommend? You've got a lot of good resource and advice in here.
You are listening to Tech Talks Tech with your host, the TechSnob, on MetawaveRadio.com. Be sure to check out our retro weekends every Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m., and party tracks, 8 p.m. to midnight. Listen in from any web browser via your loudest Bluetooth speakers. The All-Era Party is always on at MetawaveRadio.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
Now that you touched on businesses, what do you feel are the advantages businesses could have in the metaverse, as opposed to the real world? Things like costs and reach. Do you think that there's an advantage or there's some type of edge that could be capitalized within the metaverse?
Absolutely. The amount of people that can hear your story, that can see your platform, that can learn about what your business is, it's endless, because you can reach the entire world in this headset or on the computer in this metaverse environment. There are people I interact with daily, and then there are people that I interact with randomly that I would never meet in the real world. There's just no way. And the nice thing about that is, you mentioned about cost. Well, the costs are much more minimal. If you have a business in the real world and you bring your business into the metaverse, you can supplement and enhance your business so much, depending on what you do. If you do something that is like localized to your city, okay, you're probably not going to grow your business so much, but you might find a business that's similar that you can launch in the metaverse. There are a lot of people opening up businesses in the metaverse daily. And there are people who are coming up with ideas and then collaborating with other businesses and growing it all together. But I think one of the greatest things is there are people who didn't have work, whether it was because of the pandemic or because for other reasons they had lost their job. They can create their own economy inside the metaverse.
Right. And we did see that the beginnings of that in alt space. There was an economy that was growing. There's competition when people were in the same lanes doing different things. So, and I believe a lot of corporations are understanding that this might be an avenue, at least to get their feet wet at this point. And, I've been seeing a lot of that. And that being said, what are some of the personal strategies that you use to promote your own business in the metaverse?
Well, with my nonprofit, I had worlds built for it, and then I held some events to make there be an awareness, and I also put up a lot of informational signage within the worlds.
Okay.
And then did actually there was two really big events that I did. I tried to be a little creative, because how was I going to get people to keep coming back once they heard the story? Not that the story isn't always poignant and important, but what's going to make them come back? They don't want to just listen to me talk all the time.
Right.
So we actually got creative and held a concert and brought a bunch of people in, including Nancy Fletcher, who's famous hip hop artist. She came in and she sang headliner for a 6-person concert that we did. Right. It was pretty amazing. So there's room to become creative and spread your word. As far as Crypto City, that is, I do that weekly on Monday nights, and I put out as much social media as I can. And then I try to tag the people who are coming on the show. I try to keep it very current on the social media. I do like some little trivia things, some did you knows, and then I put up, a few different things to keep it interesting. I also record what I do and put it out on YouTube. And it's funny, when I first started doing that, I said, I don't know the first thing about YouTube. This is my first podcast. I'm just going to throw it out there because the people who are on my show can use it as a marketing tool for themselves. So I was trying to help supplement other people's marketing. And I went on there one day and I was like, look at, people are actually watching my podcast. I have some count on there. I didn't think that would happen. So I was excited.
So now speaking about the podcast, let's talk about that. Let's go into more depth about the podcast. You brought it over from alt space and you're now currently in VR chat. What format are you working with your podcast, and maybe some of the guests, and the topics and the structure of your podcast that you'd like to, exhibit every time that you have one?
Sure. Well, it started when I first came up with the idea. I ran it by a gentleman named Pixel Addict, who is doing amazing things in AI. At the time, he is the digital asset manager for Naughty by Nature in Vinrock there, and then he did some stuff with Run DMC, and so he's got a lot of experience doing graphic design and
in marketing as well. He's multifaceted guy.
He really is. He does a lot with Shopify as well.
Right.
So he's well-rounded, and he's probably the most engaging and passionate techie nerd I've ever met. He is so interesting to listen to because he gets like, he'll start out talking about something, and the next thing you know, he's like waving his arms, and like his passion is coming through his voice. The inflection is so high, and you're like, wow, I just listened to him talk about the nuts and bolts of something techie, and it wasn't boring.
Right.
So I knew he would be engaging with the audience. So at the beginning, I asked him if he was interested in coming on and doing a couple shows as like a field expert. And he did me one better and came on as my co-host for
Okay.
season 1. And so we formed a nice working relationship where he would come on and talk about his business and the things he was doing, and I would learn from him as he was doing it. So when he left at the end of season 1, it was with the understanding that, he was going back to his real work, and he wanted to really get a deep dive into AI and learn all these new things that were coming out. And he did that and then some. And I brought him back each season to come on and talk to our guests about the new things that are happening. And he showed us examples. He brought in some resources for us on one of the episodes. I mean, he is just an amazing person who is more than willing to share his knowledge. He's so great. So I'm very, very lucky that I connected with him and that he's done that. Other people that I have had on, Kip VR has been on. You're going to be on, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you very
that.
much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Super excited for that. And I've had, people from the music industry come on. Vinrock did come on. I also had Mystic Spirit come on, who's a manager of Riot Love, and talked about how, music in the metaverse and things like that. I brought on some world builders to talk about, the platforms and the software that they use. I brought on some actual musician artists, like Yo Afro came on. She came on and talked to us about what she's doing. And we have some episodes coming up like that as well. So there's been a lot of very interesting people who've come on and shared their story. We've had NFT creators. We've had, Miggy Crypto came on. He's a big crypto promoter that goes around to different trade shows, and he was at Consensus and ETH Denver and things like that, and he deals with a lot of different people who are involved in both crypto and NFTs. The people I've brought on, I've tried to keep it well-rounded so that my audience gets a little feel of all the different aspects of Web3.
Okay.
Myself personally, software-wise, I'm creating a lot of the marketing stuff in Canva.
Okay.
I have a paid account there, but there's a free account for anyone to go on there and can create marketing materials that are really good looking. And I also, I use the social media apps. I use YouTube to show my podcast to the world, but I record it in OBS. So that's a streaming and recording software.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm in whatever platform it was, we started in Altspace, then we went to Spatial, and now we're in VR chat. I have a bot account, which means you make a secondary account, and that avatar, when it comes in, serves as a camera. And the camera sits there and records, and it's linked to my laptop. So while I'm in my headset and I'm acting as the avatar up on stage interviewing people, the bot is just sitting there, and it's recording everything onto my laptop. And then I take that recording and I'll edit it if I need to with editing software. Other than that, it gets uploaded from OBS into a Google Drive, and from there I upload it to YouTube. So I always have a copy of it, right, and it's out there for everyone.
So, it's amazing. I'm listening to your workflow, and your workflow is very similar to ours. Now, prior to being in the metaverse, were you working with any of those workflows to get your, similar with the different video recording softwares, et cetera?
I never recorded anything before the metaverse. This is all, I learned it from people in the metaverse and some self-taught stuff. But no, I had the marketing stuff, yes, and the social media, yes, but I had never done anything on YouTube except search for music videos.
Right, and that's part of the. If you're involved in the metaverse, anyone, and you're here for some period of time, and you plan on doing these things, from my findings, from what we do, and when I hear what you do, and from other people that I speak to, you're wearing a lot of hats, and if you can't if you don't know something, you're probably going to learn it to get something done.
Mhm.
And I think that's a part of the benefit of being in this space, because it actually creates you a position where you're more multifaceted with some mediums that you'd never worked with before. I find that most of the people say the same things. I never worked with this program, but I had to facilitate this. And most of the softwares and things that you're working with in this space, they're probably free or at very low cost. Did you find that any of that stuff that you had to learn was challenging, or it was pretty straightforward?
Definitely a mix.
Okay.
Learning to do the recording with OBS. Once someone walked me through it and told me, this is the settings, blah, 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 and I set it up. I went in and tweaked it a little bit, and then that's pretty straightforward. So for anybody who's interested in recording, OBS is a very simple program. There's also a streaming capability with it.
Right.
I don't stream my podcast live just because in case something needs to be edited. I'd rather be safe than sorry, but I
Right.
could
Right.
stream it live right from the software.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
the
powerful software and it's free.
it's free, exactly. And you were right when you said that most everything is free. Having a YouTube account, I don't pay for YouTube. You can, but it's free for me to have all of my episodes up there.
Right.
I do pay a little bit on Google Drive only because I needed to increase my space. I kind of ran out of space on there,
Hmm.
but it's like what, $2.99 a month? It's nothing,
Right. I pay like $20 for a year, and I think it's like 100 gigs,
Yes,
something like that.
exactly.
So, it's not bad. It's space. I just would hope it would never go down, because we'd be in trouble.
Well,
But so,
that's true. The more challenging things to learn are the actual creative software, such as Unity and Blender.
correct.
There are many, many tutorials on YouTube Academy to go on there and learn. There's also amazing people here in the metaverse. People like Kip York, who is giving free classes on Blender and Unity for people who join his Discord. Second Life Rich, he is also a huge resource. He holds different classes on like WordPress and Zapier. So there are people who will take you in if you are truly interested and you want to learn something. There are creators in here who will take you in as almost like a mentor and teach you things to get you going. And if you're any good and you want to stick with it and you're really into it, don't waste people's time. If you're not interested, don't tie people up. But if you really are interested, there are people who will work with you, and maybe you'll find that you could become a partner with somebody in here to create a special world or
Right.
collaborate on a project.
Correct. Correct. There's not a lot of gatekeepers. I mean, there are some, but most of the people are willing to give up information. So gatekeeping hasn't been a big thing that I've seen. And
Absolutely.
anybody who wants to learn, somebody will show them. When we first started, there were some people that were willing to show us some things, and continue to show us some things throughout the whole time when we were starting to learn. And that was immensely worth its while for us to even take the time to speak to these people, because otherwise we would have probably had to read about it or watch some videos. So you're right when it comes to that. Are you in Horizons by any chance?
So, okay, I'm in Horizon Worlds with the radio station, Mr. Block Party Radio.
Okay.
We have, a platform in both VR chat and Horizon Worlds. DJ Marcus runs the radio station, and myself and Blue Moon and Fuchsia and Cybershay all work together in there. Oh, and Kip is also part of that.
Okay.
So we're a great team working together. Everybody kind of has their thing they do. In Horizon Worlds, there are some limitations.
Right.
So I cannot bring my podcast over there right now because there's no streaming capability. It's supposed to be coming, and I hope it comes soon because I would love to do a season there. But because of that, I tend to have slideshows when we're doing presentations. People who do trainings tend to go live up on the screen so you could see things, and you don't have that ability in Horizon right now. We do know the technology does exist if Meta is listening. Because they used to have the workspaces, the Horizon workspaces, and that had capability. So they can make it happen, hopefully very soon. But I'm not opposed to it. We do events in in Horizon with the radio station, and DJ Marcus has his own podcast over there. And so we kind of all do some events over there. But in general, the majority of my work right now is in VR chat.
Okay. So, you were in a couple different metaverses. You were in Altspace, you're in VR chat, and you do have a presence in Horizons. What is CityGirl most anticipating, or what excites you most about the direction of where the metaverse is going, and what would you particularly like to see within the next, I would say, 5 to 10 years or less?
Right now, what most excites me is the fact that this is openly available and you can hop from metaverse to metaverse all night long. I can go in and out of platforms. I was in Spatial for a while too, and Spatial you can access on your phone, which is great because you could be driving down the road and there's an event going on that you want to listen into. You can access it on your phone and leave your phone. We used to have one of our audience members would do that. Mystic Spirit, she'd be driving home from work and she'd have our podcast on her phone while she was driving home. So, there is a lot of possibility right now, but it's growing day to day. And that excites me so much because I'm in awe of some of the things that have come so quickly. We all know that the technology can come eventually, but in the few years, I've been in here now, coming up on 4 years, and the amount of change that has taken place and the speed that the technology is moving forward, the stuff with AI, that's what, I'm blown away by AI. I use ChatGPT all the time. There are so many things you can do with ChatGPT. So
you can. I just wrote an NDA with it in like 30 seconds.
Right?
Spit
It's
it out.
amazing. And the fact that they're overlapping, the fact that scripters who are building, people who are building worlds in the metaverse are getting scripts out of ChatGPT. And yes, you have to put the time and effort into it. And definitely, if you're going to learn AI, get into prompt engineering. I took some courses in it. I love how I can massage it to get exactly what I want out of AI. It's great.
You are listening to Tech Talks Tech with your host, the TechSnob, on MetawaveRadio.com. Be sure to check out our retro weekends every Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m. and party tracks, 8 p.m. to midnight. Listen in from any web browser via your loudest Bluetooth speakers. The All-Era Party is always on at MetawaveRadio.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
I was actually showing, we got associated with a fashion entity at this point, and I was actually showing them what can be done just for conceptualizing a design. And if you have the correct workflow, you can go into AI. You can go into AI, prompt an AI picture of whatever you want. You can actually export it to even 3D objects at this. With AI, it's becoming so powerful. At this point that, even the stock market is going crazy over it at this point. There's probably no end to it. Do you personally use AI in your workflows or for anything that you do in the metaverse?
I do. I actually use it almost every day. I use it for social media content writing. I tell it what I want and then have it put all the nuts and bolts into it for me, because I actually do social media for 4 organizations. So it's a lot. And that is on the side. That's not my real job.
Gotcha.
So I actually use it to help streamline that and make me far more efficient. In my real job, I use it to help me write, business documents. But I also have it's become a sort of Google Junior for me. If I need information on something and I'm not really finding what I want on Google, I'll jump into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me some information on XYZ. And it spits it right out. And it's usually spot on. But I will tell you one thing that I always do is I fact check, because you don't want it to have misunderstood what you asked for and given you the wrong information, and then you spout it out there as truth on your social media pages and look like a fool. So
Right.
always double check, but it helps me immensely with my nonprofit as well, because not only social media writing, but I also can use it to help me plan event ideas. I can use it to help me gain insight into, my nonprofit is about canine cancer research and treatment.
Right. Have
And
you brought that into the metaverse fully?
I did in Altspace. I had an amazing world there, and I did do it in Spatial. I'm in the process right now of bringing it into VR chat, and we're actually going to have another concert event probably in September of this year
Okay.
as a fundraiser for that. So
Mm.
it's definitely amazing for me to turn around and tell the research that's done with my organization's funding is at Cornell University, which is one of the biggest veterinary schools. They have the Baker Institute has a canine cancer research team there directly. And so the events that we do, a large portion of the funding we raise goes to their cancer research team. And I told them that we were promoting them inside the metaverse, and their jaws dropped. They were
Okay.
like, what? And I'm like, yep. I'm like, we did a concert. I'm like, here's the link. You can look at it. And they were just blown away. They didn't know what to say. So that was kind of cool.
And this is the kind of stuff that your platform and our platform, we try to convey to the real world. Like you said, you said, oh, we brought it into the metaverse and they were blown away. This is the kind of exposure that the metaverse needs so that people can understand, hey, you can be successful in here with whatever you're doing out there. Because I've seen it so many times. I've noticed even in platforms like Spatial, you had like Walmart who had a presence there.
Yes.
You had Hugo Boss, BMW. There was just a lot of different entities that were moving into this space. And business wise, they probably understand that they have to do these things, because if you don't follow what the technical trends are, you might have a problem later down the line when your competitor does.
Absolutely.
And knowing that, and you're a technologist yourself, where do you see your platform in this technical space within the next 5 to 10 years? What would you ideally want? What space would you like to occupy, and where
I
would you like to have your platform?
I would absolutely love it if we could get to a point where, and this kind of ties in with some of your knowledge and expertise. I would love to have more holographic capabilities.
Right.
I would love to be able to be holding events and be able to actually be standing there with the people that are on the other end of it. For an example, have the Baker Institute holographed in and giving a presentation on some of the latest breakthroughs in canine cancer that the people that are in our metaverse community could sit there and listen to. Because when I held my first event, there was probably about 30 people who came up to me and said, I lost my dog to cancer too. So an event like that would be amazing. Now, could they come in and do it as their avatars? Of course they could. Would
Hmm.
it be really cool to see the actual professors and research people? Of course, that would be so cool to see the doctors standing in front of maybe some of the equipment that they use and
Right.
show that. That would be really, that would be something that would resonate with the audience pretty intensely.
And this is what we say all the time. That technology is here.
Mhm.
Some of the background, some of the things that we're doing currently. It's
Yep.
here. The infrastructure is also here, but it needs to catch up a little bit, because it's not only going to be in the metaverse, it's also going to be in AR as well.
Yes. Yes.
And the technology it's getting so much smaller and smaller and smaller, by the month, where I would say within the next 5 years, it could be more commonplace to have even some of these smaller holographic devices, desktop holographic devices, where you might not need the entire studio to scan somebody. That's a possibility. There's things like Proto right now. That's a company that has these smaller holographic devices where you can have a semblance of a hologram, not fully three-dimensional, but it looks pretty decent. And you're right. It's about immersion. The more that you can immerse yourself into the space, the better opportunities that you have. So, with the question that I asked, that's the technical going forward that you would like to see. Do you feel as if your platform, you would have these kind of guests on more often, where that are leading the technology field, maybe integrating some of these technologies into your own personal platform?
Oh, I would love that. I would absolutely love to see that. That's the direction I'm going in. I'm hoping that, you know, as this is becoming so much more widely adopted by people in businesses in general, and more commonplace in learning environments, I would love to grow my nonprofit into something that people could get together and have educational like seminars at night. This would be like separate, because this wouldn't be like for the school, not like for Cornell,
Right.
but for my group, my people, to be able to come in and have a support group one night, and then the next night have an education of, this is the new cancer treatments, this is what your dog could be taking that would enhance, because the technology is changing on the stuff we're doing, but medical technology is also changing. And the more they come up with new things, I always try to find this information out and disperse it through social media. I think it
Right.
would be more impactful to be teaching these people face to face.
Correct.
Because people skim over social media. People
Correct.
listen to you when they hear you.
That's true.
Mm.
That's true. And some of these technologies are actually being deployed right now for learning. They're finding that, I've had some of these conversations myself, where, even if they were more available during COVID, information could be disseminated a little bit faster, especially among students, in educational space. So you're right with that. That being said, you're very seasoned in what you've done in this metaverse over the last 4 years, and now you're moving your platform into the fifth season now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So being that you're in the fifth season now, what would you have to say to anyone that's coming into the metaverse who has no experience, you yourself having 5 years almost? What would you give them as advice, whether it be an individual who has a platform, or whether it be a corporation or a company? What would be the best advice that CityGirl could give someone coming into this metaverse to be successful?
For an individual, I will tell you to come in here, look around, listen. Don't turn away any ideas that you think might be crazy. Embrace them and make them happen. This is a place where dreams can come true. And for businesses, be forward thinking. Don't hold back because you think this might be a whim, or it's something that's a fad that's going to go away, because it's not going anywhere. This is moving forward fast and furious. And if you're not part of it, you will be left behind. So definitely come in here and invest the time. You may need to invest a little bit of money if you're a business to get yourself, fully up and running. Find the right people, ask the right questions. Don't be afraid, whether you're a business or a person, to ask questions. And, no one expects you to come in here and know everything. We were all new once, and we all had to learn, and we are open to teaching too. So find the right people who can give you the answers that you want, and, do your research, but also come in here and wrap your arms around the available opportunities that are here for you.
That is great advice. Like she said, just come into the metaverse and shoot your shot, basically.
Mhm.
You have a lot to gain and very little to lose. Basically, the growth in the metaverse you'll also see is usually at an accelerated rate. You're going to get out of it basically what you put into it.
For sure.
So that being said, let's have some closing thoughts. And what I would like to ask for you, if you could give your information, where people can contact you, whether they have information or want information about your non-for-profit or your talk show, or any of the services that you might provide, or even to connect some people with some of the experts that you know.
Thank you. So if you're interested in the podcast, it's called Crypto City. It's on VR chat. It usually airs on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's starting up again on August 12th. And the Instagram is Crypto City VR. If you want to see the actual episodes from the previous 4 seasons, you can go on YouTube, and the YouTube channel is at CityGirl VR. My nonprofit is Kyle's Legacy Inc. You can find that on Instagram, Facebook, the website. And if you want to get in touch with me for any more information about any of those things, or even just to find out more about getting involved in the metaverse and your first steps in here, I'm always willing to come, be a tour guide for you. And my Instagram is citygirl_401, and I'm always available.
Anybody want to shout out before we close for tonight?
Well, shout out to you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Definitely a shout out to Blue Moon, because the things that I have done would not have been capable without her support and her friendship. And Kip and DJ Marcus, for sure. They're the best. And can't forget Loudfire, because she keeps out all the riffraff.
Right. Okay. Well, everybody, City Girl, Crypto City, make sure that you check her out on Instagram. It's a wealth of knowledge. She has a wealth of experts that come into her platform consistently. You don't want to miss that in VR chat and other platforms. It's very informative. She has some of the best guests on the show, and this is what you're going to want to continue to feed on. This type of free information. Information inside this place is actually free, and it can actually do great things for you. So once again, it's City Girl. Thank you once again for coming on the show. Tech Talks Tech on Metawave Radio.
Thank you.
You are listening to Tech Talks Tech with your host, the TechSnob, on MetawaveRadio.com.